What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So one of the things that I really watch for when I'm doing these videos and when I'm just looking at the news in general is I watch for different politicians that are saying things that are just not possible and could be very detrimental to the American people. And so I like to come on here, and even if it's not, I'm not talking about Social Security or I'm not talking about something specific, I'm still looking at what's going on in Washington, D.C. Are they doing the people's business? Are they actually trying to move things forward? Or are they just talking? They're just talking about a variety of different things and throwing all these different ideas out there that have no way of actually working or happening. And so I want to take a look and a listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's been getting a lot of people have been talking about her in the last this last week, just because she's throwing out all these different ideas. And I'm going to show you guys this idea that she has when it comes to red states and how people who move to those states, if you move from a blue state, then you can't vote for 3 to 5 years in the state elections. Because you came from a blue state. So I'm going to show you guys this. We're going to talk a little bit about it. And this is stuff that we need to talk about because you have to understand we are electing these people to go and represent us. And if they have these off the wall ideas of how to move forward, we're not going to get anywhere. And we're going to fall deeper into debt, and we're going to have politicians that are just out there not doing anything to help the American people. And that's what concerns me when I hear these politicians out there, instead of them focusing on the things that we need to focus on Social Security reform, focus on bringing down the deficit, focus on a lot of these different things. They're just coming out and talking about all these off the wall ideas. And so that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this clip for you, and then we're going to talk about it because she brings up this whole idea of not allowing people who move into certain states. If they're a red state, she's not going to allow people coming from a blue state to vote for 3 to 5 years. So let's go ahead and listen. Here we go.
The left would ever stop. I don't think they'll ever stop trying to invade our states or our counties. So how do we stop them?
Well, I think that, red states could choose in how they allow people to vote in their states. For example, over the past couple of years, we've seen a mass exodus from California and New York, where we've seen people fleeing those leftist policies and moving to states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, states where they like the tax policies, they like the schools, they like the consequences of Republican and red policies. What I think would be something that some red states could propose is, well, okay, if Democrat voters choose to flee these blue states where they cannot tolerate the living conditions, they don't want their children taught these horrible things, and they really change their mind on the types of policies that they support, well, once they move to a red state, guess what? Maybe you don't get to vote for 5 years. You can live there, you can work there, but you don't get to bring your values that you basically created in the blue states you came from by voting for Democrat leaders and Democrat policies. But this would be up to red states to be able to choose to do something like that so that their red states don't get changed, which is what's happening, unfortunately, when Democrat voters leave their Democrat states and they take their Democrat votes with them. That would be something that these red states would have to really consider and choose to do. But I'm a big believer in freedom, Charlie, but I'm also a big believer in defending our ability to pursue life and liberty and happiness. And the left is completely destroying that for those of us on the right.
Okay, so that was Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the last thing she talked about was freedom. And so you're telling me a person that moves from, let's say, California, they move to Georgia, and I'm going to get to Georgia in a minute because she seems to think that Georgia is a red state, which we'll talk a little bit about that. But they're moving from California to Georgia, And so they wouldn't be able to vote for 3 to 5 years. When you talk about freedom, you have the freedom to move anywhere in the U.S. that you want to, and you have the freedom to vote. And so she's talking about taking away that right to vote, which I think is really, really interesting. Now, I know she's talking just about state elections. She's not talking about the federal elections. So you'd still be able to vote for president. You'd still be able to vote. If it's federal election, you'd still be able to vote for the House of Representatives and the Senate and all of that. So it's just interesting that she would come up with this idea. And just think about this. When it comes to Georgia, I would consider a purple state. Even a blue state, if you look at it, because the current 2 U.S. senators in Georgia are Democrats. And we just saw in the midterm election that Georgia chose Warnock again, another Democrat, to go back to the Senate. So if you're looking at just strictly state politics, the Republicans are controlling just state politics. But when you're looking at these statewide elections, you have 2 senators representing Georgia that are both Democrats. So I would say at least they are a purple state. So how does that play? Who determines what's a red state and what's a blue state? Is it just the state assembly and the state senate, or do you incorporate what's going on in the statewide races? And so it just doesn't make sense what she's saying. And so I just don't know where she's getting this. And then when it comes to what if you are a Republican leaving California and going to Georgia? So you're registered Republican, which there are registered Republicans in California. And the reason that you're moving, just like she was saying, because she set this up where she's saying that people are fleeing California because they don't like the politics in California. They're moving to places like Georgia and Florida and Texas. So if you're leaving what you see in California, why would you go to another state and vote the same way that, let's say, they vote in California? So vote for Democrats. You would leave and go to Georgia because you want a different environment. So why would you vote for the same things? It doesn't make any sense. And so it's interesting that she uses that reason, like people are fleeing and they're going to these different states. And when you only say only Democrats aren't going to be able to vote for 3 to 5 years, we have a problem, right? Because it's not everyone. It's not just new people coming into the state. It's just Democrats. And so I mean, I can imagine if they said the same thing to her and they said, let's just say they flipped Georgia and Georgia's now what we would consider a Democratic state, a blue state. Well, now people that are moving to Georgia can't vote. If they're Republicans, they can't vote for 3 to 5 years. I could imagine how that would go over. I mean, you have politicians right now crying about social media and how they're getting canceled and they can't talk and they can't do this and they can't do that. And that's a private company. Could you imagine if you moved into a state and they said, just because you're a Republican, you can't vote for 3 to 5 years? Could you imagine the backlash? But that's exactly what she's saying right now. She's saying that if you're a Democrat and you come from another state, a blue state, we're not going to allow you the right to vote. So it's just, I mean, it's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. And what really bothers me about this whole thing is she should be in Washington right now working for the American people, trying to get things done. And that's not what they're doing. The House has been in session for, 7 weeks now. They haven't moved forward any type of bipartisan legislation because that's what they need to do right now. They know we have split government. The House is run by Republicans, the Senate's run by Democrats. In order for something to get done, they need to come together and have some type of bipartisan bill that goes through. So why aren't you working for these bipartisan bills? All they're doing is saying, this is a problem, look what they're not doing here, look what they're not doing there, but they're not offering any solutions and they're not moving forward and going across the aisle and trying to come together with some type of bipartisan bill to help the American people. Instead, they're just on Twitter. Marjorie Taylor Greene is on Twitter all the time, just putting out all this different nonsense instead of actually getting work done. And so I just, like I said, I like to bring this up when I see these different politicians just doing nothing. And basically all they're trying to do at this point is enrich themselves. And the more that they talk about all these different problems and not have any solutions, that's not going to help the American people, but it will help them because it gets them more views. It gets them people that are that are going to support them financially so they can move forward in their political career, whatever career they want to have. And so that's all. It's to enrich themselves, but not to help the American people. Because if it were to help the American people, she would be actually putting legislation together, bipartisan legislation to help the American people. But instead, this is what we get. We get these off-the-wall policies that they want to implement at the state level. This is not at the federal level. And I understand she was probably asked this question, and so she was responding to the question. But you need to be in D.C. actually helping the American people and not talking about this nonsense about not allowing people to vote that come into Georgia or to a red state. And she was saying other things, earlier this week about separating states and, along the lines of blue and red. It's just, it's amazing to me that we have politicians that just don't want to work. They just don't want to work. All they want to do is troll. They just want to be out there just talking about different people, different politicians on the other side and all this stuff. But when it actually comes down to work, it's like when you go to a job and everyone is, you have people at the job that are actually working, and then you have other people at the job that are just gossiping. And that's all they do. They want drama and they gossip back and forth, but they're not doing any work. They're just gossiping about everyone at work. And so that's what she's doing now. She's just gossiping about everyone at work, but she's not trying to help move forward any type of legislation. And so we're going to continue to follow these politicians. When it comes to legislation, I'm going to continue to focus on what they're doing and what they're not doing. We're already 7 weeks in. Nothing has been done. We don't have any legislation that has a chance to pass in the Senate. And that's what they need to be focused on. Getting legislation passed in the House and then something that can actually pass in the Senate. Not just pass it in the House and say, look, we did a great thing. No. Talk with the Senate, get them on board, move forward with legislation to help the American people. What do you guys think about all this? So let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.